In this infinite corridor, there are countless doors. Behind each door, there is a parallel world. The man opens one door after another in search of his way home, but behind each door is a doomsday scenario. Will he get lost in this endless corridor? The man's name is Jason, and he is a physics professor at a university. His wife's name is Daniela, and they have a son named Charlie. Their family life is warm and harmonious. Although their income is not high, he is content with the current situation. One day, he drops off his son at school and receives a phone call from his old classmate, Ryan. Ryan tells Jason that he has won the Pavia Award, which is highly prestigious in the scientific community. Ryan calls to invite Jason to the celebration tonight. After ending the call, Jason feels a bit sad, but he still goes to teach his students. He teaches a class on Schrodinger's cat, but most of the students are not interested in it. In the past, he had deep research in fundamental physics, but he chose his marriage over his academic career, which resulted in his career stagnating. In the evening, Jason arrives at Ryan's celebration party, which takes place at a rural bar. He embraces Ryan warmly, but Ryan expresses regret for what Jason could have achieved in his academic career. Ryan knows Jason's academic worth, and his award-winning paper is based on research notes from Jason at university. To express gratitude, Ryan invites Jason to join a newly established neurotechnology company. The company has raised $100 million in funding. Jason really wants to go, but the company is located in another city, and he hesitates. He decides to go home and discuss it with his wife. Facing the choice between family and career once again, Jason is very hesitant as he walks through the alley. He encounters a masked man who points a gun at him. After taking Jason's phone, the man takes him to the outskirts. Surprisingly, the robber knows the unlock password for his phone. He seems to know Jason well. They arrive at an abandoned factory, where the robber forces Jason to undress and takes his wedding ring. Then, the robber injects him with a substance, and Jason feels dizzy and disoriented, but he can only follow the instructions and put on the clothes given by the robber. He can't understand the robber's intentions until the robber mysteriously says,
"Have everything that you must out on."
Jason lost consciousness, and in a daze, he saw himself being pushed into an operating room. When Jason woke up, he found himself lying in bed, and the injuries on his face confirmed that it wasn't a dream. At that moment, a strange woman named Amanda came in and congratulated him on passing all the tests, stating that he no longer needed to be isolated. This puzzled Jason, and Amanda took him to a conference room, where several researchers were present, all of whom were participants in this mysterious project. Jason felt confused, as he had no recollection of this project. Amanda informed him that he had been away for 14 months. She asked him to recall the last thing he did before losing consciousness. Jason mentioned drinking with Ryan at the bar, but couldn't remember who had caused his facial injuries. Jason was frightened by everything he had experienced after waking up, and now he just wanted to go home quickly. However, the project leader, Layton, did not agree. The researchers wanted to track Jason's progress in recovering his memories. Taking advantage of lax laboratory supervision, Jason managed to slip away from the experimental base. He found that the door wouldn't open, and the security personnel seemed to recognize him, and even helped Jason open the door. He finally shook off the pursuit of the research facility personnel and returned home. While waiting inside was not his wife, Daniela, but Amanda. She told Jason that they had been living together in a romantic relationship. Jason didn't believe it at all. He shouted his wife and child's names loudly, but there was no response. Even his son Charlie's room had been turned into a study. Surprisingly, there was his Pavia Award trophy displayed on the bookshelf. He quickly called his wife, but a stranger answered the phone. Amanda realized something was wrong, so she immediately contacted the research facility. Jason watched as people rushed to the building downstairs, and quickly slipped away through the back door. Meanwhile, in another timeline, someone arrived at Jason's house. It was another Jason, the masked man. This man embraced Daniela, and passionately professed his love to her. She had no idea that her real husband had been replaced. This person was just a thief from another timeline. Now, there are two Jason. To differentiate between them, the one whose life has been replaced is Jason, and the other one is Jason too. At this moment, Jason evaded the pursuers, and ran to a rural bar. He asked the bartender, Matt, if he knew him, but seeing the unfamiliar gaze in Matt's eyes, Jason became even more afraid. Tonight, at the celebration party, they opened the most expensive bottle of Macallan Rare Cask. While Matt said that the bottle hadn't been sold this week, Jason couldn't believe it, but he persisted in asking Matt, hoping that he would confirm knowing him. Yet, Matt treated Jason as if he were crazy, and kicked him out of the bar. Jason also began to doubt himself. Could there be something wrong with his mind? Jason went to the hospital to have a brain scan. At night, he looked at the marks left by the ring on his finger, which proved that his memories of his wife, Daniela, were not false. The results came out the next day. The scan report showed no brain damage, but the toxicology test revealed the presence of a psychoactive compound in Jason's body. He thought about the injection he received from the masked man. There was also unfortunate news that the hospital couldn't find his two family members. There was no one named Daniela Dessen in Chicago, and there was no student named Charlie Dessen at St. Peter's High School. The doctor began to introduce this world. Jason's background: his doctoral degree from the University of Chicago, his postdoctoral researcher position at Harvard University, and his receipt of the Pavia Award in 2010. But he hadn't been seen for over a year. Jason searched his wife's maiden name online, and he found a result. But it was different from his wife in his memory. Daniela in this world was a renowned painter. He found out that Daniela was currently hosting an art exhibition. Jason was eager to confirm the truth, so he sneaked away and took a taxi to the venue of the exhibition. Strangely, the staff initially tried to stop him from entering, because he didn't have an invitation. When they heard his name, Jason Dessen, they let him in willingly. There were numerous celebrities in the hall, indicating that Daniela had achieved high artistic success. In Jason's memory, his wife did enjoy painting, but she gradually gave it up after their marriage. He saw a painting on the wall that depicted him as the subject, and a warm feeling surged in his heart. When he saw Daniela in that moment, tears almost welled up in his eyes. But Daniela didn't even know their son Charlie, and her attitude towards him lacked the intimate affection of a spouse. It seemed more like casual conversation between friends. At that moment, his friend Ryan appeared, a former recipient of the Pavia Award, who had become an ordinary university lecturer. After the art exhibition, Daniela and Ryan were full of curiosity about Jason's disappearance. Jason couldn't answer their questions, because he had no memories related to it at all. He could only describe fragments of his life based on his memories, including Ryan's success, his marriage to Daniela, and the birth of their son. Everything changed only after encountering the masked man. But what Daniela said next shocked Jason beyond measure. Once they were a couple, Jason too chose to break up with Daniela in order to continue his research. Afterward, they went their separate ways and rarely contacted each other. Until 1 year ago, Jason too suddenly approached her and said some strange things. He said that our existence is determined by choices, and different choices create different worlds. In theory, we live in countless worlds at the same time, and Jason too's worst decision was giving up on Daniela. At this moment, Jason found it hard to believe, but Daniela's determined expression made him realize it wasn't a lie. Why did he have no memory of this? Ryan couldn't tolerate such a discussion. He thought Jason was either joking or mentally disturbed. He angrily left. Jason was unwilling to give up. He called Amanda, his cohabitant, to distract her, and led Daniela towards their room. They had spent countless sweet moments here, but everything seemed to have changed. Even the decorations on the walls felt unfamiliar. They went upstairs to the study, and while Jason was searching for information, he mentioned their son, Charlie, who resembled Daniela, and had inherited her talent for painting. But there seemed to be resentment in Daniela's eyes. And finally, she revealed a secret. After she accidentally got pregnant, she told Jason too the news, but he said he needed time to think. And then Jason too chose to continue his career, and asked Daniela to leave. But Jason strongly denied this. He claimed that at that time, he gave up research, and chose to start a family with Daniela. Daniela stood there in silence, feeling like Jason was playing with her, and she turned around and left. Jason gathered his papers and caught up to her at the car. Daniela expressed that she was willing to believe Jason, but why were there two versions of their memories? This became the mystery they were desperate to unravel. Before long, Jason found the answer in his study notes. Jason of this world had invented a quantum superposition device, enabling travel between different worlds. When Daniela got pregnant, the two Jasons made different choices. One devoted himself to research, and the other returned to family life, resulting in the splitting of their paths into two parallel worlds. And in this world, Jason, after achieving everything he wanted, felt an inner emptiness and longed for his lost love. In pursuit of a different possibility, he invented a traversal device, and crossed over to another parallel world. he exchanges identity with Jason there. Although everything sounded unbelievable, Daniela still believed in Jason. They talked about the married life in Jason's memories, and their emotions grew more intense. The sudden ringing of the doorbell shattered the warmth, and it was the female guard from the lab. She broke the door lock and pointed her gun, warning them not to make any sudden moves. Just as Daniela was about to call the police, she was shot by the female guard. Jason was forcefully taken back to the lab. Layton, the head of the experimental project, was greatly distressed. He never expected things to escalate to this extent. They were once like brothers, but now they were at odds. Jason questioned Layton if he had sent the female guard to kill Daniela. Layton also had a secret. He was the only one among the experiment participants who returned alive. Layton hoped that Jason would regain his memories quickly and remember how to use the traversal machine. At that moment, Detective Mason arrived at the lab, and Layton appeared to receive her. After a brief exchange of greetings, Mason explained the purpose of her visit. The exceptional scientist Jason had been missing for over a year, and the police had a record of his disappearance. But a few days ago, he suddenly appeared at a hospital and an art exhibition. Now he mysteriously disappeared again. Mason found this highly suspicious, especially regarding Jason's company laboratory. Previously, 2 people had already gone missing, and as Jason's superior, was Layton aware of it and chose not to report it? Facing Mason's sharp questions, Layton appeared extremely astonished. He blamed Jason for not disappearing, but not contacting him. However, Mason did not easily believe him, and stated that she would definitely investigate to the end. He drove away Mason, and Amanda came to see him again. She had already learned that the female guard killed Daniela, and criticized her for acting too violently. Daniela was just taking out her phone to call the police, but was brutally killed. But such behavior would create enmity with Jason, and Layton insisted that the female guard's actions were not wrong. Jason must not appear in front of the police. The series of disappearances in the lab had already raised suspicions, and on top of that, Layton had invested billions of dollars in this experiment. If the truth came out, not only would the investment go down the drain, but he could also end up in prison. After listening to these words, Amanda finally regained some rationality. She believed that it was crucial to help Jason recover his memories as soon as possible, because without his involvement, the experimental project could not continue. Jason seemed to realize this as well, and agreed to regain his memories immediately. Layton felt relieved and optimistic, as it seemed like the situation was taking a turn, and Jason, on the other hand, was planning that as long as he compromised, he could gain access to the lab's confidential information. This would not only allow him to explore the secrets of time travel, but also uncover the true purpose of the laboratory. What secret were they willing to kill for and cover up? Layton led Jason into the core area of the laboratory, where a metal box was placed. Jason had previously read relevant information in his notebook, and quickly understood the underlying principles. It was a device that demonstrated quantum superposition, but it was still in the theoretical stage. Due to interference from various external factors, Layton concluded that Jason's memories were stuck before he received the Pavey Award, because later he invented a smart material that could resist all external interference, block out all noise from the outside world, and emit a powerful magnetic field. Jason was full of admiration for this idea, and he opened the door to the iron box. Amanda reminded Jason that he was the only person who could walk out of there. Previously, 3 colleagues voluntarily experimented, but never came out. Due to the isolating nature of the iron box, it was impossible to install communication devices inside, and the outside world had no knowledge of their fate. Layton played the surveillance video from that day. Jason too walked into the box. The metal door had just closed when Amanda arrived. When the metal box's door reopened, it was already empty inside. He had been missing for over a year, until a few days ago. Jason crawled out of the box. He woke up in the laboratory, and he finally understood why Layton and others were so excited. Jason, in order to return home as soon as possible, immersed himself in studying a large amount of experimental data. Amanda came over and asked him if he remembered the time they had spent together. Jason too and Amanda were a couple, but Jason certainly wouldn't like her. However, Amanda said she didn't mind, and was even willing to get to know him again. Amanda is the psychologist at the High Velocity, responsible for training experimental subjects and regulating emotions in the harsh environment. After all, the experiments conducted there are not easy for anyone. She also mentioned Jason's friend Ryan, who is responsible for providing special drugs to the laboratory. but only Jason knows the purpose of the drugs. As a psychologist, Amanda understands the symptoms of Jason's amnesia. Even without brain damage, extreme stress can cause psychogenic amnesia. Jason sighed and said that he was no longer the same Jason, but rather the Jason seen by others. Amanda quickly grasped the profound meaning behind these words. Is the Jason in front of her from another parallel world? Unlike Jason's suffering, Jason too is enjoying a life that doesn't originally belong to him. He is determined to play the roles of a good husband and father. Nevertheless, replacing Jason is not an easy task. Jason too can't even remember the names of close friends and family members. Facing the upcoming family gathering, Jason too feels a bit anxious. He takes his son to the skateboard shop, while Charlie is choosing a skateboard. He asks for information about the friends coming to the party tomorrow night. Charlie's attention is focused on the skateboard, and he doesn't pay much attention to his father's question. On the night of the party, Jason too not only accurately calls out everyone's names, but also cracks a small joke humorously. Even his closest friend Ryan doesn't notice any abnormalities, and feels that Jason's condition is better than before. During dinner that evening, Daniela unintentionally asks Jason too the name of the holiday hotel they booked last Thanksgiving. Jason freezes for a moment, but luckily, he suddenly remembers the photos on his phone, and successfully answers the question. In the other world, Jason too interacts with upper-class individuals, making it easy for him to deal with ordinary people. Daniela is very satisfied with Jason too's performance tonight, but she feels that he has become somewhat strange recently. Jason too has already prepared an explanation. He almost had an accident at Ryan's celebration party, and at that moment, many fragments flashed through his mind. He finally understood that he truly cares about Daniela. When the two of them are sweet together, the Jason in the other world faces another crisis. After understanding Jason's identity, Amanda informs Layton about this matter. To prove that the person in front of them is not the original Jason, Layton questions Jason again, and brings his friend Ryan as well, to confirm that he is not the previous Jason too. Jason tries to resist, but is brutally beaten by the female guard. Since Jason is not his technical director, Layton has no concerns about hurting him. Layton is eager to know the usage of the metal box, because Jason too once told him that the box can open the door to a new world. Layton chooses to believe him, and invests a significant amount of money, but now he has gained nothing. Under Layton's command, Jason and Ryan are locked up together. Ryan reveals the properties of the experimental drugs supplied by the laboratory. They can temporarily put certain parts of the frontal lobe to sleep, but only Jason too knows their specific purpose. Jason connects the principle of the metal box, which puts a person in a superposition state. However, it is theoretically impossible, because the subconscious mind doesn't allow it. But if the area of the brain responsible for this mechanism is asleep, quantum superposition can be achieved. It turns out that the key to activating the device is to inject the drug developed by Ryan. The two of them haven't figured out what to do next. When Layton barges into the room with the guards, he asks Ryan to leave, and leaves Jason alone in the room. Just as he was about to rest, Amanda bursts in. She shut down all the surveillance cameras in advance. She wants to escape with Jason. Amanda regrets revealing her speculation to Layton. Regardless of whether Jason is her former boyfriend or not, she has decided to let him go. The two of them just ran into the hall, meet Layton head-on. Immediately afterwards, all the guards were dispatched. The two of them have nowhere to escape. Amanda quickly grabs 2 boxes of medication. Then the two ran into the big black box. However, the door can only be sealed for 3 minutes. After that, it will automatically open. Amanda decisively suggests using quantum superposition technology to escape from this world. Jason doesn't have time to think much. He can only do as Amanda says, and inject the potion into his body. Then his consciousness starts to blur. Amanda also injects herself with a dose. When the 3 minutes are up, both of them awaken from their slumber. The surrounding scenery is completely different from before. Endless iron doors are on both sides. It seems to have no end in sight. This is the transit station to various parallel worlds. Each iron door represents a brand new world. Unfortunately, these iron doors have the same appearance, making it difficult to distinguish. So how can they confirm which door leads back to their original world? They randomly pushed open a door, and instantly found themselves inside an iron chamber. They stepped out of the chamber, and it looked like an abandoned laboratory. Jason was filled with curiosity about what had happened here. They stepped out of the laboratory, and were immediately stunned by the scene before them. Dust was swirling in the sky, and murky seawater was crashing against the shore. The entire world seemed to be covered in yellow sand, silent and desolate. Just as they were stunned, the distant skyscrapers began to tremble, and subsequently collapsed one after another. The two of them reacted quickly, and promptly hid back inside the iron chamber. Jason took out a satellite phone, and found that their current location matched the coordinates of the original world's iron chamber. That means the position of the iron chamber hasn't changed, it's the outside world that has changed. At this time, they still had 48 doses of the medicine. Then, the two of them injected themselves with the medicine again, and returned to the transit corridor. Jason pushed open a door, and the world turned into a forest. Instead of exploring further, he immediately returned to the transit corridor. It was then that Jason understood that as long as they were within the effective period of the medicine, they could continuously open the iron doors. They opened another door, and this time they were met with a world scorched by the sun. Jason quickly closed the iron door. Amanda was driven to the brink of losing her sanity by a series of overwhelming scenes. She ran frantically in the transit corridor, trying to find an end, but it was all in vain. Jason immediately reminded her that the number of parallel universes is infinite, and every choice leads to countless possibilities. They won't easily find their original world. They urgently need to find enough food and water to sustain them and open more iron doors. He hopes that one of the doors will lead them back home. Jason continued to try. Was exactly the same as the layout of the Velocity. Just as the two of them were astonished, they saw Layton and his guards catching up with another version of Jason and Amanda. Both sides disagreed, and the female guard unexpectedly shot and killed Amanda. Jason and Amanda were so scared that they returned to the iron box, and Amanda quickly realized that this world was the version they failed to escape from. Jason didn't hesitate anymore. He continued to try opening new doors, but each time led to extremely harsh environments. A series of failures caused Amanda to break down emotionally. She walked into the blizzard, and Jason followed. The environment here was too harsh, and they needed to quickly return to the transit corridor. However, their footprints had been covered by heavy snow, and they couldn't discern the way back. They could only find a place to take shelter from the blizzard. Unfortunately, Amanda fell into a coma due to a sudden drop in body temperature. Jason carried her and continued forward. Fortunately, they found a house, but the temperature inside was low. Jason quickly searched for a way to keep warm, and soon the fireplace was lit, causing Amanda's breathing to gradually stabilize. The next morning, Jason stuck his head out and surveyed the surroundings. The snow outside was almost as high as the roof. He went outside to check, and the entire city was covered in ice and snow. Everywhere he looked, it was a vast expanse of whiteness, and he couldn't see the location of the iron box at all. He couldn't help but curse the one responsible in his heart. In the evening, Jason finally woke up the unconscious Amanda, and informed her that the iron box was now covered under the ice and snow. Amanda regretted her impulsive behavior from yesterday. This experience reminded her of a snowstorm they encountered years ago while skiing with her father. This reminded Jason, and he asked Amanda if she had the same thought in her mind while in the corridor, to which Amanda nodded. Just before entering this world, she felt trapped, just like when they were trapped in the snowstorm years ago. Jason suddenly realized that the worlds behind the doors might not be random but rather a reflection of their inner thoughts and emotional states. Yesterday, Amanda thought of a snowstorm, and the result was they went to a world covered in ice and snow after opening the door. Jason, on the other hand, thought that if they hadn't escaped the lab behind the door was the outcome of them not escaping. In fact, they were the ones controlling the box. They immediately went outside and searched for the iron box's location in the snow, guided by the satellite phone's instructions, but the cold weather caused damage to the satellite phone. Amanda took out a compass, knowing that the coordinates of the iron box were fixed, while the direction pointed by the compass was incorrect, due to interference from the strong magnetic field of the iron box. This proved that the iron box was nearby, and based on this, they searched all the way, and finally found the iron box in the snow. The two successfully returned to the time corridor, and the way back home was right ahead. Yet, Jason wasn't in a hurry. He looked at his watch, and said with a touch of sadness, "Today is my son Charlie's 16th birthday, and also the anniversary of my other son's passing." In the alternate world, Daniela is also informing Charlie about this. When Daniela was pregnant, she had twins, but one of the fetuses had an abnormal heartbeat. He fought bravely, and came into this world as the older brother, but he couldn't endure multiple surgeries, and eventually lost his life. Every year on his son's birthday, Jason never misses it, but now he can't be with his wife and son. This brought tears to Jason's eyes, and Amanda was also deeply moved. Jason still couldn't understand one thing. Jason too had a successful career, so why did he choose to exchange lives with a university professor? After pondering for a moment, Amanda said to Jason, Jason too has a very resilient personality. He carefully considers every choice he makes. What is something that you have, but he doesn't? Jason immediately thought of something. What Jason too wants is Daniela and Charlie. On the other hand, Jason too is completely unaware of this. He has fully adapted to his new life, no longer needing to spend all day in the lab, but instead staying at home, experiencing the warmth of family, and enjoying the care of loved ones. On that day, he accompanied his son to school. Today is Charlie's 16th birthday. Jason too asked him how he felt, and Charlie replied that birthdays are usually similar every year, but this year would be different. Charlie is about to turn 16, which means he can get his driver's license and drive in the future. Jason too arrived at the classroom, where none of the students were willing to pay attention to the lecture. He angrily smashed the glass bottle in his hand, successfully grabbing the students' attention. But then he noticed that many people didn't bring textbooks and pens, instead only bringing laptops to class. Jason too was extremely disappointed, and left the classroom. He had previously been involved in cutting-edge research projects, and felt that teaching such students would undoubtedly be a waste of life. He quitted his job, and then came to an apartment building. Leighton lives here, and the two of them were college classmates. Now Leighton is just a wealthy playboy. He has recently lost his grandfather, and his life has lost direction. Leighton is glad to see Jason again. Jason too presented his request to Leighton, hoping that he would invest in his research project. At first, Leighton wasn't interested, until Jason too brought him to an abandoned factory. He didn't explain much, instead gave Leighton a special potion to drink. Then he led Leighton to stand next to a massive iron box. The moment they entered the iron gate, the surroundings turned into a pitch-black corridor. Leighton was stunned and speechless. Jason too told him that to experience the ideal world, one must abandon all distractions, and go through another world. He knew very well what Leighton wanted, and all Leighton had to do was follow him. Leighton stepped out of the iron box, and encountered his deceased grandfather in the parallel world, which excited Leighton greatly. Jason too told Leighton that he could take anyone to their ideal world. Leighton immediately realized the immense business potential in this, and expressed his willingness to support the project. On the other side, Daniela was very sad. As a father, Jason had never missed any of his son's birthdays, but today, after leaving early in the morning, he never returned home. Daniela had no idea that her real husband was traveling through the corridor, commemorating their son in a special way. In the evening, Daniela and Charlie were preparing dinner. When Jason too walked in, he explained that the reason for his delay was to prepare a special gift for his son. He took out a box and handed it to Charlie, and to their surprise, there was a car key inside the box. Charlie saw the car key in his hand, and almost jumped with excitement. He had always dreamed of having his own car. Daniela was also astonished. Their financial situation couldn't afford such a valuable gift. Jason too confessed to Daniela that he had resigned today. His achievements shouldn't be limited to just that. He attracted a significant investment with his invention from college, so future life wouldn't be a problem. Jason too also encouraged Daniela to pick up her paintbrush again and pursue her dream of being a painter. Jason felt like he had mastered the method. He approached the iron door again, trying to make himself feel safe, happy, and warm. As soon as the door opened, surging seawater immediately poured in, and the interior of the black box was quickly submerged. Then it quickly sank. Both of them struggled to close the door with all their might, finally returning to the transit corridor, where they took deep breaths of air. They failed once again. Amanda suggested taking a break, as their psychological stress was too high, which would likely cause deviations in the world behind the door. Amanda, being a psychotherapist, lived up to her reputation. She took the initiative to chat casually with Jason, and the atmosphere became more relaxed. Jason asked Amanda, who had entered the black box before Jason too. Amanda replied that the person was named Blair, the chief engineer of the company, and also a close friend of hers. However, Blair had been missing for a long time. At midnight, Jason woke up Amanda. They hadn't eaten for a day, and needed to find food as soon as possible. After discussing it, they decided to push open the iron door once again. Inside the door, they found the Velocity again, but there were no workers in sight, and all the rooms were locked. Amanda said that only in the event of an accident in the laboratory would it be in a locked-down state. They found an unlocked room, but there was a corpse lying on the bed. They were about to retreat to the black box, but they were stopped by a person with a gun. Amanda recognized the person's appearance, and was surprised to see that it was the missing Blair. They immediately embraced each other, and Blair offered them food. After they finished eating, Blair shared her story. She had started traveling between different worlds ever since she entered the black box. When she arrived here, the world had already been taken over by mutant bees. The Blair from this world brought the mutant bees into the Velocity, causing chaos and death. She had been hiding in the Velocity all this time. Amanda tried to persuade her to leave with them, but Blair was very excited. She wouldn't go back into that box until she was fully prepared, because she had been to many worlds, but each world had its own unique life. She couldn't find a place to belong, and Blair tried to persuade Amanda, even if she helped Jason return to his original world. What about herself? Would there be a place for her in that world? So Blair would rather stay here than try new worlds. Amanda felt guilty, as she hadn't prepared for Blair thoroughly before letting her enter the box. Seeing Blair's resolute attitude, Amanda had to stop persuading her. As they were about to leave, Blair handed Amanda a notebook. The notebook contained all her experiences on the box, and she entrusted them with a task. Entering an ideal world isn't that simple. Even fears, distractions, and subconscious desires can change the world behind the door. Back in the transit corridor, Amanda felt upset, because this black box had ruined many people's lives. She started to resent Jason too, who could freely travel between parallel worlds. Why didn't he come back to stop people from entering the box? Jason knew what Jason too was thinking. When Daniela told him she was pregnant, Jason hesitated for a long time. He ultimately decided to choose his family, and worked hard to play the role of a good husband and father, to prove that his choice was not wrong. On the other hand, Jason too chose academia. After completing his research, he felt that his past choice was a mistake, which led him to give up everything he had, and only wanted to return to Daniela and their child. He was angry, but he still had to continue trying. The two of them injected the serum again. Jason suddenly had an idea. People are most focused when they are writing, so he wanted to use Blair's notebook to write down the appearance of an ideal world. Then Jason opened the door once again. The scene outside was so familiar. It was the place where Jason too had kidnapped him. Jason was excited and immediately ran out of the factory. However, the street was eerily silent, with no sign of anyone. It was another post-apocalyptic world. Amanda suggested returning to the black box as soon as possible, but Jason decided to explore this world. Otherwise, they wouldn't learn how to control the box. He found an abandoned car, and drove with Amanda to his home. Jason knocked on the door. Daniela opened the door. Her husband had just been taken away, but she still let Jason inside. She told Jason that this world had been invaded by a virus. Both Charlie and she had been infected with the virus. Just then, several quarantine soldiers appeared on the street. After confirming that Jason and the others were not infected, they urged him to hurry back home. Jason said that his entire family had been infected with the virus, but the hospitals were overcrowded. The quarantine personnel could only give him a few doses of medicine, urging the patients to leave peacefully. Amanda advised him to leave, to avoid getting infected with the virus, but Jason wanted to accompany his wife till the end. As he saw his wife's tears, he talked about their sweet memories. To calm Daniela down, she handed the medicine to Jason, and after returning to the black box, he felt really bad. Amanda began to summarize their experience. Jason only wrote that, "I want to see my family," but he was fearful of losing them. Opening the door with such emotions led to a world ravaged by the virus. Jason contemplated, and they opened another door. This time, the world was normal. Had he truly come back? He immediately rushed back home. Meanwhile, Jason too was arguing with Daniela. She blamed him for missing their son's birthday, and making major decisions without consulting her. Jason went upstairs with a knife, intending to teach the thief a lesson. But when he opened the door, there was no Jason too inside, only a frightened Daniela. She immediately called the police. In this world, Jason and Daniela had already divorced, and he was currently in prison. Their son and mother chased away the confused Jason, and the police car arrived quickly. Jason managed to escape with Amanda in time. He was now being hunted, and couldn't use transportation to return to the black box. Amanda had to find a temporary place to stay. Amanda thought of her mother, who was shocked to see her. It turned out that Amanda had passed away in this world. Her mother realized that her daughter was alive. Under her mother's concerned gaze, Amanda pretended to be calm, and said she was doing well. They then left together, with Amanda taking her mother's car keys, and they successfully returned to the black box. This experience made them understand Blair's words. Each world has its own independent life, and blindly interfering will only bring endless troubles. On the other side, Jason too consoled his wife, and decided to continue his previous mission. He wanted to personally guide Layton, and take him into the ideal world. Jason too told Layton that, not everyone can fully control their thoughts and subconscious. The most common mistake beginners make is accidentally entering newly split parallel universes. With Jason's guidance, Layton successfully arrived in the ideal world. After witnessing the magical abilities of the black box, Layton was not satisfied with just that. He wanted to experience more fantastical worlds. Jason too told him that there were only a few doses of the crossing potion left, and every use meant one less bottle. Wealthy Layton was puzzled, because he had a lot of money, and was willing to buy the potions at a high price. To earn this huge sum of money, Jason too returned to his own world to retrieve the potions, but he learned from his assistant that Amanda and another Jason had entered the box, and Layton, the person in charge, had also gone in. After Jason too returned to the original world, he planned to seal the box of the original world, so that Jason could never come back here. The next day, Jason too handed over 50 bottles of potions to Layton, wishing him to find the perfect world, and then bid him farewell. Jason too picked up his son Charlie, and gave him the ice cream he bought, but after a while, Charlie's throat started itching, he had difficulty breathing, and his whole body convulsed. He quickly injected Charlie with epinephrine, and rushed him to the hospital. Daniela hurriedly arrived. Fortunately, Charlie was out of danger. She questioned her husband why he gave Charlie nut ice cream, even though he knew his son was allergic. Jason too's worst fear had come true, and he realized there were many things he didn't understand. Daniela found a friend to confide in that the significant changes in her husband recently, as if he had become a different person. He even forgot that their son was allergic to nuts, and Daniela noticed several needle marks on his arm. She suspected her husband was using drugs behind her back, and her friend suggested that Daniela should follow him. Jason too left again, and Daniela followed him to a warehouse. After Jason too left, Daniela approached the front of the warehouse. She lifted the rolling shutter door, and propped it open with her shoe, then managed to retrieve a small empty bottle. Daniela took the empty bottle to her friend, Ryan, who had expertise in this area. She asked Ryan to help analyze the substance inside the bottle. As soon as the test results were out, Ryan confronted Jason too. The residual substance in the bottle was identical to the drug he was researching. Jason too explained that he wasn't a thief. To prove his words were true, and to demonstrate the true purpose of the drug, he took Ryan to an abandoned factory. After injecting themselves with the potion, they entered the black box, and an endless corridor appeared before them. Jason too explained that they were in the 5-dimensional probability space, also known as superposition. Ryan immediately understood that they were in a state of quantum superposition, where every possible reality was continuously replicated. But the even more astonishing discovery lay ahead. Jason too instructed Ryan to open a door, revealing the perfect world Ryan had longed for. Using the excuse of taking photos, Jason too took Ryan's phone. However, Ryan soon sensed that something was amiss. After locking eyes with each other, he finally understood that the person in front of him wasn't the Jason he knew. Ryan quickly swore that he wouldn't expose him, but he was still trapped in that world. At that moment, Ryan's phone received a missed call from his wife, and thought of the bottle of medicine Daniela gave to him. Did Daniela start to suspect herself? An ominous premonition engulfed him, and Jason too arranged for someone to seal the black box, to eliminate any potential problems. Meanwhile, Jason and Amanda continued to navigate various worlds, making frequent trial and error attempts, and learning from their experiences. The supply of the potion in their hands was diminishing, yet none of the worlds they encountered was their original one. Amanda stopped Jason, and took him to an upscale restaurant, where they could unwind. They danced together, enjoying a rare moment of leisure after so many days. The next day, they arrived in another parallel world, and Amanda appeared somewhat exhausted. She wanted to have a day of her own, so she made plans to meet Jason there that evening. No matter what, Amanda observed her counterpart in this world, who had a happy family, making her own loneliness even more apparent. In the evening, she met up with Jason, and the man appeared deeply saddened. Today, he had observed Daniela, and another version of himself in this world all day, witnessing their sweet happiness. It was only now that Jason truly understood Jason too. That man must have been following him for a long time, and Jason now experienced firsthand the feeling of jealousy. It ignited his determination to find the original world, and reclaim everything that belonged to him. Yet Amanda reminded Jason that there were countless parallel worlds, and they were like searching for a drop of water in the ocean. Jason had already experienced too much, from his wife being murdered to dying from an illness. His mind couldn't sustain such pressure, and with only 10 bottles of potion remaining, their opportunities were dwindling. They needed to try different approaches. Firstly, they needed to relax. This time, Amanda opened the door. Even a city forged from steel and iron can be filled with the sounds of birds and the fragrance of flowers. Amanda shared her approach. When opening the door, instead of envisioning this world, she thought about the humans in this world, who possessed knowledge of fundamental truths, had environmentally friendly technology, and, most importantly, had empathy. Upon the bartender's recommendation, the two of them went to a popular rooftop restaurant, both dressed in exquisite attire. Amanda had already inquired, and found out that the Jason in this world worked as an insurance salesperson, while the Amanda of this world had gone missing exactly 2 years ago. Their upbringing and life experiences were identical. Amanda had obtained her identification card through retinal scanning. Amanda decided to stay here, while Jason could return to the original world. It didn't belong to Amanda, and she couldn't go back to her own world either. Staying here was the best choice. Amanda hoped that Jason would also stay, but he still refused. Jason took out 2 bottles of potion from his bag, leaving them as an opportunity for Amanda to regret her decision. But Amanda declined. She never regretted her choices. Jason placed the potions back into his bag and left the restaurant. Amanda stood in the elevator, holding back her tears. In fact, Amanda knew from the beginning that they would eventually part ways. The setting sun cast its light on her face. Life had only just begun. Jason returned to the black box, with only 3 bottles of potion left. Without hesitation, he immediately headed to the next destination, but he still couldn't go home. Using another bottle of potion, it still wasn't his original world. Jason dialed Daniela's phone number. He was afraid that he might never hear his wife's voice again. This is the last consolation. After the phone call ended, Jason passed by a shop. Looking at that familiar mask, a thought arose in his heart. Night, he sneaked into his own home, and saw Daniela and Jason sound asleep. Originally, he wanted to imitate Jason too, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Jason hid in the kitchen. His emotions couldn't calm down for a long time. Just then, the kitchen light turned on. He thought it was his son, Charlie, but to his surprise, it was Max, who had died from a heart disease. Jason wanted to hug him, but Max started crying. He felt guilty towards the heart donor, believing that he himself wasn't exceptional, and having the heart in him was a waste. Perhaps his father also felt the same. Jason quickly comforted his son, and gave up the idea of being a replacement. Afterward, he found Ryan in this world, hoping to obtain some potions, only to discover that Ryan was now just a car mechanic. He had been arrested for drunk driving. After graduating from high school, he was unable to continue his studies at university, which changed the course of his life. Jason's plans fell through. With only 1 vial of the special potion left, Jason found himself in a desperate situation. He wrote down on paper the entire process of meeting, falling in love, and staying together with his wife, and then injected the last vial of potion. Despite being envious of the other Jason in this world, who not only had Daniela, but also had another son still alive, he didn't choose to take away their fate. Deep in his heart, he knew he wanted a life of his own. Jason pushed open the iron gate. Would he be able to return to his own world? Meanwhile, Jason too also encountered a dilemma. He trapped Ryan in a parallel world. Originally, he wanted to kill him, but Daniela started to notice something was amiss. Then, the police officer Mason showed up at their door. It turned out, 3 days after Ryan went missing, his girlfriend reported it to the police. Mason asked them about when and where they last saw Ryan. Daniela replied, it was in Ryan's apartment 5 days ago. Jason too answered, it was in a rural bar 3 days ago. They were drinking together. Ryan was in an abnormal emotional state at the time, and kept drinking, but after they parted ways, he went back home. He also didn't know where Ryan went. After getting the information, Mason left. Daniela confronted Jason too directly. She took out the vial of potion, and asked what was inside. He explained, it was an experimental compound, developed by Ryan for his own experiments. He didn't tell his wife, because he didn't want her to worry. Daniela temporarily believed this explanation. They appeared to reconcile. However, Jason too felt somewhat annoyed. He himself pursued perfection. In his ideal vision, Daniela should be a successful career woman, and trust her husband, rather than trailing behind him. He was even considering leaving. The next day, Jason too was at the doorstep, where he encountered Mason, who had been waiting for him. Based on the location where Ryan's phone signal disappeared, she found an abandoned factory in the outskirts. She asked Jason too if he went there with Ryan. He denied it. Mason simply smiled, and deliberately said to Jason too that she planned to go back and retrieve the surveillance footage. This raised a sense of crisis in Jason too. He approached the sealed black box and exerted all his strength to smash it open. He didn't leave this world, but instead brought back the drunk Ryan, and even gave him a bath and haircut. But is Jason 2 really that kind-hearted? On the other side, Jason, after injecting the final dose of the potion, pushed open the door, only to find a damaged concrete wall, which was broken by Jason 2. Jason took a few steps forward, and saw the vial of potion on the ground. He felt excited, and hurried to the rural bar. The bartender indeed recognized him. This was his true home. Jason ran back home. Through the crack in the door, he saw Daniela and Charlie, but the thief was also there. Jason realized he had to get rid of the thief. He went to a nearby weapons store, with the intention of buying a handgun. The shopkeeper warmly introduced the options to him, but he didn't have a government-issued gun license. He ended up buying a balisong and pepper spray. Not long after, another Jason 3 entered the store, also intending to buy a handgun. The shopkeeper exclaimed in surprise, "Didn't you just come here?" At that moment, Jason 3 finally learned that another version of himself had already been there, and had bought a balisong and pepper spray. Jason 3 rushed out of the store. There was no trace left of the other version of himself. Jason 2 came out to dispose of the trash, but was confronted by the Jason in the yellow sweater against the wall, who was holding the balisong. After a struggle, Jason 2 successfully killed him in self-defense. He looked at the body on the ground, and fell into contemplation. He hid the body in the warehouse. Charlie suddenly appeared, and interrupted the plan. Jason 2 decided to wait until evening to deal with it. Meanwhile, Daniela came to visit Ryan, but he said he wasn't a scientist, just an ordinary mechanic. Daniela asked him about his last memory. He replied, it was Snowick Bar in Logan Square. A man was buying him drinks. Daniela showed him a photo of her husband. Ryan nodded. That man was the one who bought him drinks. Jason 2, to avoid police pursuit, surprisingly brought another version of Ryan from a different world. Daniela couldn't guess that. She just felt. Her husband became more suspicious. Jason armed himself to kill Jason 2, but in the hotel corridor, he saw another version of himself. That person turned and ran. Jason chased after him, but couldn't find him. He emerged again from an alley. Another Jason, Jason 4, wearing a jacket. He followed Jason through several streets. Jason managed to evade him by hiding in a bar. Just as Jason breathed a sigh of relief, he saw Jason 5 wearing a black hat. Both of them were filled with questions. They decided to have a conversation. Unlike their white rings, Jason 5 wore a black ring. After comparing notes, they realized they had both been kidnapped by Jason 2, and had both awakened in the Velocity. Subsequently, with Amanda's assistance, they escaped from there. Both of them understood. They were both Jason. They made different choices in the black box, which resulted in different branches of Jason. Just like in the beginning, due to different choices in career and family, Jason and Jason 2 were created. But on the way back to the original world, Jason made countless choices, creating numerous Jasons. These Jasons make choices again, and the number of Jasons becomes infinite. After realizing this, both of them were surprised, because they both knew these Jasons were determined to return to the original world, even though some of them died along the way, or ran out of the serum, and couldn't continue to traverse. But this world is the endpoint, even though the probability of successfully arriving is low. But if there are enough Jasons, there will never be fewer Jason who came to the original world. What's even more terrifying is, they are different from Jason 2. Jason 2 came from another world to take over the wife, but these Jasons are all evolved from kidnapped Jasons. Each one is legitimate, while Daniela and Charlie can only have one, so there will inevitably be a great war. They cannot possibly join forces. Jason 2 and Daniela lie in bed, trying to rest, but neither of them can fall asleep. As the inventor of the black box, Jason 2, he realizes that as long as one Jason appears, countless Jasons will emerge. Daniela is also unable to sleep. Today's incident with Ryan makes her suspect even more that the person beside her has issues. The next day, Jason wakes up on a park bench. He comes up with a good idea. He walks into a cafe. He intentionally lights up a cigar. Immediately, a customer warns him, smoking is prohibited here, but Jason ignores it, until an officer arrives after receiving a report, and takes him away in a police car. On the other side, Daniela returns to Jason's storage room once again. She uses tools to cut the lock, and enters the storage. She sees a phone on the table, with many photos of Jason taken secretly. There's a box of special serum in the suitcase. She also finds Ryan's jacket. Her husband is indeed suspicious. Her phone suddenly rings. It turns out to be a call from the police station. Meanwhile, Jason 2 takes Charlie to visit the University of Chicago. He suddenly sees another Jason appearing in the corner. He takes his son to the library. It's crowded here. He wants to use this opportunity to shake off the pursuit, but Jason 5 follows closely. He instructs Charlie to leave first and meet at the roadside near the school's back door. He then quickly runs towards the rooftop. Jason 5 continues to follow him. He hides behind a bookshelf. He takes advantage of Jason 5's momentary distraction and attacks from behind. They fight on the ground. Due to Jason 5's previous serious injuries, he is no match for Jason 2. He is quickly strangled to death by Jason 2. Jason 2 places the body in a restroom stall. Then he leaves with his son. Inside the police station, after Jason signs the confession letter, he finally sees his wife, Daniela, but her attitude is distant. Jason explains to his wife that he deliberately got himself arrested so that he could see her. He also mentions the night at the rural bar. As the last time he saw Daniela, the person beside his wife wasn't him. That person stole his life. To prove that what he says is true, he asks Daniela to contact her current husband. Surprisingly, her husband's voice is heard on the phone. Jason asks her to mention last Christmas, when they had a wonderful time on a coral island. In reality, they didn't go to a coral island at all, but she still follows his instruction. The Jason 2 on the other end of the phone is indeed exposed. Daniela finds it hard to accept. She now only wants to find her son. Jason understands her feelings. To prevent interference from other Jasons, they agreed on the meeting place and secret code for their next encounter. After Daniela returns home, she immediately notices something is amiss. Jason 2 is actually packing their belongings. He tells his wife that he has encountered some trouble and asks her to pack up as well. They leave from there. He plans to explain further on the way, but this also confirms that he is an imposter. Just as Daniela is about to warn her son, Jason 2 interrupts her. Daniela pretends to pack. He sends a text message to Charlie, but Charlie doesn't check his phone. Daniela tricks Jason 2 to the staircase and kicks him into the basement. Then she hurriedly escapes with her son. Coincidentally, they encounter the Jason who came to pick them up. Without much thought, they get into the car, but this Jason starts telling the story of being replaced. Daniela becomes suspicious, but in the next moment, a car rushes towards them. The two cars collide. Daniela and Charlie are unharmed, but there is also a Jason in that car. Daniela takes Charlie to the subway entrance. The original Jason has been waiting there for a while. After verifying the secret code, this family finally reunites, but there is no joy in Daniela's eyes. Jason drives away from Chicago with his wife and son. Daniela and Charlie's phones keep ringing. From different branches, other Jasons all claim to be the one who loves Daniela the most. She decisively turns off her phone to find peace. Jason can't decide where to go now. The places he thinks of, other branches of Jason can think of as well. Charlie says he has a place to go. At night, the family arrives at a villa. This is their good friend James's vacation villa. Other Jasons won't know about this place. They finally have time to sit down and talk. Charlie is still confused. How did he end up with so many fathers? Where should they go next? Jason tells his son not to think too much. He will take care of everything. Daniela's mood is also very complex. She knows her husband must have sacrificed a lot to be back with her, but she also wants life to return to normal. But the reality is that there are countless Jasons. Jason tells his wife, just like when Max passed away, they need to pull themselves together. After Daniela falls asleep, Jason logs into the email account. He discovers that the Jasons have turned the message board into a forum. They are updating each other in real time about the family's movements. Conservative Jason suggests protecting the family together, but radical Jason wants to possess the family alone. They will eliminate the other Jasons until only one remains. Jason realizes the complexity of the situation is far beyond his imagination. He is highly nervous. He is at the point where he suspects everyone. He guards the villa's hall throughout the night. The next day, Jason walks towards his wife with a cup of coffee. Daniela brings up Jason 2 on her own. The other Jason makes her feel like she's back in the early stages of their relationship. Jason feels guilty after hearing this, because he had also imagined, if he had chosen his career, how things would have turned out. Jason 2 obviously had the same thoughts, but Jason 2 was the one who acted upon it in the end, which led to the current situation. Daniela argues against her husband. It's not his fault for everything. Jason confesses to her. There are currently hundreds of Jasons searching for them, but Daniela doesn't seem afraid. She even jokes about it.
Wow. Holidays would be a nightmare.
Meanwhile, Jason 2, who was pushed down the stairs by Daniela, just regained consciousness, and he sees Jason 6 wearing a hat. Approaching him, he has clearly gone through a lot of hardships, the mastermind behind everything. Jason 6 shows no mercy to him. He learns from Jason 2 that Daniela and Charlie have been taken away by another Jason. He starts tracking Daniela's whereabouts, but the phone's location tracking is not working. There are no records of restaurant visits, flight tickets, or hotel stays. They refueled in Schaumburg and withdrew $500 in cash. They can't figure out where these 3 people went. Jason 6 understands himself and Daniela. The other person knows this too, so it must be Charlie's idea. He forces Jason 2 to hand over his phone. There's a clue inside. Daniela's friend Blair can't reach her. She can only ask Jason through text. When will he return the borrowed car? The vehicle they used when Daniela's family left was borrowed from Blair. Jason 6 immediately replies to the text, asking Blair to come to their house for a detailed conversation. Jason 2 asks, what has happened to him? Jason 6 tells him, Daniela in Jason 2's world has been killed. The culprit is a staff member from Velocity Labs. Amanda, who was abandoned by him, helped Jason 6 escape into the black box. At that time, both of them were confused and scared. What kind of good world can be opened in such emotional state? Until they opened the 6th iron door and arrived at a burnt forest. A strong wind blows. A fallen branch pierces through Amanda. Jason 6 has no way. 2 days' time, he watched her lose her breath. After speaking, he handed the computer to him to see. There are countless Jasons on the email message board. Jason 2 felt regretful. This was not his intention. He originally thought that, after Jason came to his world, he would enjoy a life of success and fame. He didn't expect this series of events to happen. Shortly after, Blair came to Jason's house, but no one answered. She saw bloodstains on the stairs, and had a sense of foreboding in her heart. Blair went to the 2nd floor, shouting Charlie's name. Still, no one answered. She continued to search inside the room. In the master bedroom's closet, she found Jason 2 tied up, but immediately another Jason appeared. Jason 6 forced her to hand over her phone. The purpose was to locate Blair's car, so they could find the whereabouts of his wife and child. Blair pretended to take out her phone, but actually, it was a bottle of pepper spray. Taking advantage of Jason 6's lack of vigilance, she quickly turned the tables. She removed the cloth strip from Jason 2's mouth and let him explain clearly what was going on. The family regained the feeling of their past interactions. After enjoying breakfast together, they decided to leave tomorrow. Jason and Daniela talked about parallel worlds. For them, regarding parallel worlds, it's like fish swimming in a lake, and after being thrown into another lake, they realized that the world they thought was everything was just one among countless worlds. Daniela asked her husband if he ever wanted to stay in a particular world. Jason expressed that his heart had indeed been shaken, but in the end, he chose to leave, because he knew deep down, those weren't the lives he truly desired. The two embraced. Their hearts were once again connected. Daniela opened Jason's computer and left a message. She had made her decision to be with the Jason in front of her. In the middle of the night, as Jason prepared to keep watch, he saw a dark figure flash by. He immediately chased after. The Jason in the woods fell to the ground, already heavily injured. With a gunshot, another Jason fell. Those Jasons had caught up to this place. Jason quickly returned to the house and urged Daniela to wake up Charlie. They wanted to leave immediately, but the gun-wielding Jason had already infiltrated the house. Once again, he forced him to change clothes and switch identities, but this time, Jason chose to resist. At this moment, gunshots rang out and saved Jason. Facing the vigilant group, Jason 2 quickly revealed his identity. He put down the handgun, stating that he meant no harm. He had followed Blair's phone's location to get here, but he didn't expect his own car to have a tracking device, which led to so many Jasons finding this place. Jason 2 took out his car keys. He returned the wedding ring, urging them to leave quickly. More and more Jasons arrived at the villa. The man stepped on the gas pedal forcefully and rushed out of the yard with his family. Charlie found a package in the back seat. Inside were potions for time travel, Max's ashes, and a cell phone. There was a recording of Jason 2 on it. After he entered the black box initially, he accidentally discovered the world where Jason was. He had a happy family that Jason 2 didn't have, which made him extremely jealous. So, he planned a kidnapping to switch their identities. But in his interactions with his wife, Jason 2 gradually realized that Jason dared to love, while he had never dared to take risks for love, which led to their divergent life paths. Now, any apology is insufficient to make up for his mistakes. For them, this world has become too dangerous. The only way is for the three of them to use those potions to find a suitable new world to live in. Soon, Jason's family arrived at an abandoned factory, but the factory was filled with Jasons. After reading Daniela's message, they chose to support their wife's decision. Now they came here just to bid farewell to their wife and child. Sometimes letting go is also a form of love. Under the gaze of the Jasons, the family entered the black box. There were still people trying to stop them along the way, but there would always be a Jason stepping forward to intervene. Until the door was closed, Jason injected the potion for his family. The three of them prepared to embrace a brand new world. Ryan, who was deceived by Jason too, started researching the special potions. Blair from the B world regained her confidence and prepared to continue the journey. Layton was still searching for an ideal world. Amanda, who chose to stay, met Ryan. Their story is still unfolding. That's the complete content of Season 1 of Dark Matter. This series uses Schrodinger's cat theory to create a black box that allows travel through parallel worlds. Different choices lead to the birth of different parallel worlds, providing the audience with a unique viewing experience. But this film also tells us that the choices we make should not be easily regretted. Yet human nature inevitably has a greedy aspect. Jason too achieved success in his career, but he still envied the happiness of Jason's family. Regretting his initial choice of pursuing academia, he then made the decision to swap identities. But when his wife wasn't as perfect as he imagined, he wanted to leave everything behind again. How can a person's life ever be perfect? Treasure the people in front of you. Treasure every day in the present. Don't regret the choices you make. If you like my channel, please subscribe to me.